Whoa.
What?
Exactly.
Why?
Let's just get into it and welcome Eric Edmeades to the show. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. You guys seem to be having a whole lot of fun over there already.
Oh, man,
it's terrible. It's so hard.
Seriously.
Oh man, we're doing our best just to survive over here for sure.
Wait.
And yet you are marooned on an island quite literally.
Yeah, I am. I'm at home, and my family got separated from me in the U.S., so I'm in this home by myself, arguably for the next 2 months, according to local government. So it's there's a lot to learn about solitary confinement, I can tell you.
Right, and this is quite a flip considering I think just right before this you were in Africa, like in the, with the Bushmen of Africa. This has already been quite an adventurous year for you. Like let's start there just to have some, not that it's lighthearted, it certainly isn't, but a change of dialogue than most people are probably listening to right now. You had appendicitis, all sorts of stuff in the bush in Africa.
We had a crazy adventure. So for the last 10 years, I've been visiting with the Hadza people of East Africa, and they are one of the last nomadic hunter-gatherer tribes left on Earth. And I've been visiting them now for 10 years, and so I organized a 2-week visit with them. Week 1 was to take a bunch of our WildFit coaches to go and meet with the Bushmen and kind of get the cultural experience and the life experience of it. And then week 2 was my very good friends Ara and Vaughn joining me for a documentary that we're working on called The Guys Must Be Crazy, because we go stay a week and live with the Bushmen and hunt with the Bushmen, and we don't take food. I mean, it's some crazy stuff. Well, in the middle of this, I came out of the bush with the first set of guests to pick up Ara and Vaughn and bring them out. But that night, I started having pretty serious gut pains. It's like in the old days when I used to have dairy products and stuff. Like it was really painful. And so I thought, well, maybe somebody just slipped something. I just ate something bad or whatever. And then a friend of mine is like, we have a doctor on the team here with us. We have Dr. Vince Padre from New York with us. Why don't you go talk to him? He's a gut guy. So I go talk to him, and he's like, you might have appendicitis. Then Ara, who's also a doctor and a surgeon, he comes and does an abdominal exam, and he won't leave the room until I agree to go get a CAT scan. And an hour and a half later, I'm on the table having a CAT scan, and an hour and a half after that, my stomach's getting cut open because I had my appendix had actually ruptured. And the reason that they didn't realize it ruptured is the way they put it as well. Usually most people that have that serious problem are not walking around talking with people and joking. Mm-hmm. They're usually on the floor in a puddle of tears. And I was like, yeah, but I had guests to take care of. I had to, but there it was. I'm on the operating table. They offered me a general anesthetic or a spinal, which is kind of like an epidural. I said, well, with the spinal, can I watch? So I took the spinal so I could watch them do the operation, which was fascinating. But I got all around, it was really lucky. Had the appendicitis thing happened a day or two earlier, I might have been dead. If it happened a day or two later, I might have been dead. It happened right at the right moment. And by the way, even more so today, because I would not want to be going to a hospital right now with an emergency.
True. That's true. Yeah, I had a couple of friends in different countries right now that I was just, and just getting out. They were being held up in different locations and unable to even get out. So we're grateful that you're here, and we're always super grateful that you had Dr. Pedri there too. We had him on the show the other day.
Yesterday.
Well, by the time this comes out the other day. Timelines, woo! So for you, Eric, and everything, so you have amazing wellness brand that I'd like to touch on before we even dive into what people can be doing at this time and some of the conversations that aren't happening as frequently. And I know that you can speak to from your perspective as well, and that you've seen what we've seen. When I've seen people loading up their grocery carts at the store, I'm seeing, lots of alcohol, cereal, Kool-Aid, soda, foods that definitely are not going to support an immune system from any virus, let alone the current one.
It is a really crazy time. I think there's a couple things that need to be discussed about that. The first thing is, it doesn't matter how you eat. It doesn't matter how you eat. That's not going to stop somebody from catching the virus. The way virology and immunology works is there's your fundamental health, and that'll have to do with how strong and how well you fight and how well you recover. But then there's, do you have immunity? And no matter what you eat, that doesn't give you immunity. It gives you the ability to develop immunity. Right. So what's going on right now is the minute somebody like me stands up and says, take care of your health and nutrition, some some clickbait doctor will write going, this won't help your immunity at all. Okay. So that's been irritating me. And what's also been irritating me is that the CDC and the government are saying a lot of good things, right? They were early on saying, guys, we should be socially distancing. Even when the president of the country is saying, hey, it'll be over by Tuesday. The CDC was saying, listen, social distance. And they were right to say that, wash your hands properly, all that stuff. I mean, all that stuff was right. But what blew me away is the CDC was not telling anybody to stop buying Coca-Cola and frozen pizza. They, even on their own website, they talk about malnutrition being more dangerous. If you can solve for malnutrition, that is more effective in fighting a measles epidemic than the vaccine is. And yet they're not talking to us about that at all in this situation. Right. And where it really became clear to me was when all the news started coming out in Italy, it was mostly killing old people. What puzzled me is, why was it only killing old people and not young people? Because the flu kills at both ends. The flu kills at both ends, right? Why is this one only really mostly killing at that one end? And then, of course, it became really clear. And that was, this virus is not ageist, it's healthist.
Yes.
The science advisor to the Minister of Health in Italy just a few days ago said that of all the deaths that have been reported as COVID-19 deaths, only 12% of them were fully attributed to COVID. And the rest of them, COVID was just the straw that broke the camel's back. That the people were in there with diabetes, hypertension, obesity, inflammation of any kind, autoimmune disease, and a variety of other things, which are heavily lifestyle influenced. And so, yep, we really need to be looking at our last line of defense. The first line of defense, social distancing. Next line of defense, wash your hands. Don't, all that stuff. But your last line of defense is your health. And while that will not stop you from contracting the virus, it will have a lot to do with how well you fight it and how well you recover from it.
Yes.
Agreed, man. And coming from emergency medicine, bro, for all those years that I was in the hospital, this is what I was driving home the entire time. What's going on with people? Every time there was one of these things that came up, SARS, MERS, the West Nile virus, all of these things that came up, is like people's bodies are not together in the first place. And people are still eating crap. People are still eating processed food. People don't know anything about their diet. And soda is still running rampant on this planet, in this country. And
it's actually probably being consumed more now than it was.
Yeah, because there's a lot of emotional eating going on right now, and I was watching all these videos out of Europe when the shopping hit Europe, when the panic shopping hit Europe before it got to America. I was getting videos from friends of mine, and they're going, like, all the frozen pizza's gone, all the cookies are gone, all the sodas are gone, all that stuff's gone, all the alcohol's gone. You know what's still there? Kale. Fresh food, fruits, fresh meat, fresh fish. I mean, yeah, the very things that your body most needs during this time were the things that were still sitting on a lot of shelves. Now, that's not true for everywhere, but it was consistently true enough that I think we can call it true.
Mm-hmm.
Man, listen, every time we go to get some grub, the produce aisle is packed with awesome stuff, and all these shelves with canned stuff and processed stuff, it's all gone. It's emptied out.
Look, there's one good reason for buying some of the canned stuff. There's one good reason, and that is if you genuinely believe that there's going to be that society, that the fabric of society is at threat and food production lines are going to get broken, then yeah, go get canned stuff. You don't want to starve, right? But don't open any of the cans unless
just hold on to them. And
yeah,
that's
that's
the
way I've been shopping. I went in. Now at the time, I was shopping for 4 people because I believe my family was coming home. But I went out and I bought a whole ton of fresh meats and fresh fishes and that kind of stuff. And I froze almost all of it. Then I got a bunch of vegetables and fruit, froze all those. And I'm not touching that stuff. Now every week I'm getting my deliveries here and I'm getting fresh stuff. And I'll go to the frozen stuff at the point in time that I feel like I need to get the frozen stuff. But I'm not. My frozen stuff is not pizza. It's not Pillsbury dough cookies and crap. Like, here's what we know, what we really are beginning to know, and I know is a strong term, but what we will find, I believe, when real research is done and real investigation is done of the data, we are going to find that being diabetic was incredibly dangerous during this time. We're going to find that hypertension was really dangerous during this time. We're going to find that, any respiratory issues that you might have been having, incredibly dangerous during this time. We're going to find, I believe, that even being healthy and having spiked blood sugar is going to be incredibly dangerous this time. In fact, think about this. Somebody goes into the hospital with symptoms. What do they start feeding them in the hospital?
Dextrose, man.
they start feeding them the hospital diet, which is the most dangerous diet in the world. You know, it's incredibly dangerous. So it is really time for us to get that our food choices are no longer about some weird long-term existential threat to our, you know, whatever. In the old days, it was like, well, if I eat like this, I might not live as long, or I might be sick when I'm older, but I'm immortal today. But now your shopping cart might have an influence on whether you're alive in 2 weeks.
Yep. And I mean, listen, this is the case that's been going on forever, man. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for people to really be with themselves and see this stuff. If we have this information, this information available, why is it not being put out by our government? How come we're not demanding it? And I think this is a place for, you know, us as leaders, us as people who are influencing other people to really step up and make this information known. So I appreciate what you're doing, bro.
Think about it this way. If suddenly somebody came out and said, I've got this drug and it's effective in 90% of cases, how many people would be buying that drug? Right? Like, they'd take it all day long. Well, 90% of the people that are succumbing to this disease have a pre-existing, largely lifestyle indicated or lifestyle collaborated issue. And so there is a drug that is 90% effective against this disease. And that drug is taking care of your body, you know, making sure you're getting good fresh air, making sure you're staying hydrated, making sure you're getting sunlight, making sure you're getting sleep, and making sure you're getting good, whole, natural foods, and making sure you're not putting too much toxic rubbish in. And when we do those things, we improve our odds.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is we are not being, or the approach currently is just trying to keep people from dying. It's not a fortification of living. And that's a big difference in approach. Right? It's like, well, we just don't want people to die. We are also considering that by working on the support of people living, less people are going to die, right? Yeah. It's like that focus on what we don't want, which anyone, whether it's from NLP, psychology, whatever, the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you create it through fear, stress. That changes how your immune system functions. That changes, I mean, anyone with pre-existing conditions, the stress alone is going to kick in their conditions.
Yeah, the fascinating thing about that is look, I believe I have a theory as to why our stress is so influential on our immune response. And the best way to describe it is probably with a metaphor, a Star Trek or Star Wars metaphor. It works like this. You're in your ship, and your ship has shields. And there comes a point in the battle where the shields are defending you, but you begin to realize that the danger you're facing, your shields are not useful for. So you're standing there and there's a lion behind you. Your immune system is not going to help you against this lion. And in that moment, you need to have all of your energy on your fight, flight, or freeze response. So like the captain of the Starship Enterprise, you would say, divert all power from shields to thrusters. You see, you would take that energy and apply it to where it's going to save your life. And stress, an immediate impending doom, says, well, right now I'm not worried about getting sick. I'm worried about dying now. And so we divert all the power from the shields to the thrusters. And when we're under stress, we get that weird hypervigilant thing going on, no shields. And we basically just open ourselves up for whatever's coming in and attacking us and not being able to respond to it incredibly well. What we really need to understand, look, I know there's some people out there like, yeah, I've really gotten good. I'm only looking at the news once a day. Okay. I'm pretty mentally robust. I've been through some tough stuff in my life. I was in a casino when 4 guys walked in with automatic assault rifles and started shooting. I held my cool. Like I'm a pretty cool cucumber when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I can tell you, when I read the news, I can't just read it and be done with it. It's in me now. Those thoughts are in me now. And let's be really clear. Those headlines were not written to inform us. They were written to frighten us so that we keep going back to the news. I joke around about headlines when it's funny. It's not so funny anymore, but I saw a headline the other day. 21-year-old boy dies from coronavirus. That shocked me because at that point it was an old person's disease. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second now. As a matter of fact, I think the day I read that was my 50th birthday about a week ago. It's like, oh my God, 21-year-old. Okay, read the rest of the article. He had leukemia and a respiratory disease. But they don't say that in that. They don't go seriously ill 21-year-old dies from coronavirus. They say 21 because they know they're going to frighten us. You know, I saw another one, speaking of, you know, I know we've had interesting conversations about various alternative medicines, plant and otherwise. And I saw this article and it said, woman dies after taking sip of MDMA laced wine. That's the headline. Well, that makes it sound like MDMA is incredibly dangerous. Now, I happen to, because of all the work that I've done in the field of PTSD and military response, and I happen to be a major advocate of the legalization of MDMA for PTSD therapy. This headline is going to damage that because the headline is what most people read these days and don't bother to go any deeper. When you read the rest of the story, here's what you find out. The woman opened up a bottle of wine that was pure MDMA being smuggled into the country because it's against the law. And she poured it out thinking it was a glass of wine and drank it. So she drank 1,000 times the dose. It wasn't laced. The technical definition of laced is a tiny, small quantity. Now, I'm just using these examples to show that the news is not here. In fact, look, we got to end on a fun note for that topic. How about this? Here's my favorite ever. I'll let it sit with you for a minute. This is my favorite ever CNN headline that makes the point that they're just trying to get us to click. Here it goes. Lesbians appeal to the Pope. You know, I'm just saying, they're not writing the headlines to inform, they're writing the headlines to engage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, and the shock and engage, man. That's how we get it in. And yeah, I'm using that Star Trek reference, bro.
Yeah, that's great. That was awesome. Solid.
Thank you. I'm just letting you know that you hear me.
Anytime he can reference Star Trek, bro. Star Wars.
Yes, sir.
But I got to tell you, I think it's a really nice way for people to understand why stress does that. Stress is supposed to be. Here's another way I think about it: is you're out there and you're out there in the jungle. You're out there in the jungle somewhere, and there's a tiger that's like 6 miles away. You can see it with your. It's way out there. There's no point in getting a bunch of adrenaline about that. Right? There's no point in it's 6 miles away. You want to be aware of it. You want to be logical about it. But if you start to panic now, then what happens, by the way, you start producing a bunch of adrenaline. You lose empathy because you become selfish about your own survival. That's why drowning people can drown other people. You lose your connection. Your connection to logic becomes incredibly basic. It's basically very simple logic. You can't handle complex logic at all. And your intelligence is cut in half. You try and do an IQ test with a gun to your head. Your IQ under stress is incredibly... So if the tiger's 6 miles away and you start stressing about it now, you lose your logic, intelligence, and empathy. Mm-hmm. And that's not, and then on top of that, your immune system is getting depressed during that time. You know, I noticed that I was having a pattern years and years ago where if I got in, I used to have a horrible temper. I'm not violent, but I just would lose my temper and shout and scream. And I gave that up a long time ago. But you know what I noticed is a fight like that, a week later, I'd have a cold.
Yeah.
Mm. So this is not the time for fighting. This is not the time for stressing. And this is not the time for reading content that's going to go in and freak us out. I get that we want to be aware. I get that we want to know what's going on, but there's a balance between, and frankly, like I'm always telling people, like, if you want to really know what's going on, honestly, these days, get your comedy from the president and get your news from the comedians. And then you'll really be in touch. Like, if you want to get some comedy, just dial into old Donald. He's saying some funny stuff out there sometimes. Now, I'm kind of kidding because listen, and I know, any of your Trump fans are going to be mad at me for saying this. Listen, I'm kind of kidding. He's doing the best he can with all kinds of mixed information. I would not want his job right now. So I don't really mean it critically.
No.
I wouldn't really want it ever.
What's that?
I wouldn't want it ever really under any conditions.
No, that's a horrible job. But but what I'm really trying to get at here is that if you really want to stay informed, then, seriously, check out guys like Stephen Colbert and John Oliver, who are actually doing an incredibly good job of informing us. And you watch them once a week because if anything's so urgent you need to know about it today, somebody's going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you just said that because one of my girlfriends here in Austin, by the time we got back from our last trip, she was just a ball of hiding in her house. And I mean, she's healthy. She works out. She's really doesn't have a threat. She doesn't live with anyone. She doesn't interact with, compromised people. She was having her food delivered. Like, she was isolated before isolated was cool. Right. So When we got back, I told her, I said, I'm inviting you to not look at a single solitary additional piece of information, and just trust that if there's anything important, I will tell you, because we talk every day. So if there's something I feel that's important, I will tell you, because I can discern. And even in discerning, I still have to pay attention to my physiology, because I might go to the store and I can feel all the other nervous systems. That animal instinct we have for survival will tap into the other bodies in the room, in, other people that might be
neurons, pheromones, it's all out there.
Yep, exactly. And so she exponentially shifted, within 2 days after that. She's like, wow, I feel really good.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly, because she had built up a distinct fear of the virus itself. And for me, I was just like, look, it's like you're saying, I see the tiger, we know that it's there, and as it gets closer, we know where it is, so we can make choices. And it was never about isolating or not isolating. It was strictly from the perspective of the virus itself is not the threat. And in Austin, we actually have kept numbers really, 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 really low, and I think only one fatality.
Thank you to Tim Ferriss.
Right, that's true. When he jumped into everyone isolate, that made a huge difference here. But everyone here at the grocery stores are kind. People aren't freaking out, at least in Austin proper. I can't speak for the suburbs.
Yeah. You guys, you've got good people there, and that's great. I think one of the other things that is really important here, I've been working on this book for the better part of last year, and obviously it's, now is the time to really be working. Anybody who's ever said, if I had the time to write a book, it's like, this matter of fact, do you guys know Tucker Max from Scribe Media?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've got Tucker coming on my Thrive Time show later this week to talk about how to write a book at home and that kind of stuff, because there's so many people doing that. But the one thing that I've been working on in this book is this idea that a lot of the suffering and the difficulty that we were going through even before this stems from something we call the evolution gap, which is the gap between our genetic evolution and our pace of change in society and technology and so on. And, we've identified that there are these what we call essential human needs. And they are, they're divided up into physical, emotional, and spiritual. And if you don't meet those needs, your immune system suffers, your health suffers, your longevity suffers. And so I think it's great for us to talk about taking care of ourselves. And we've talked about taking care of our body, but the emotional and spiritual needs are really important right now as well. And as a really good example, I keep hearing people, like when President Trump says that it's going to, we're hoping to stop this by Easter. What he's doing right there is incredibly dangerous, in my opinion. Never mind, there are some things that he's done earlier. I don't mean this critically. I mean, I might have made the same mistake based on what the advisors were telling me. But when he said, look, we've got it under control, we've got it handled and all that kind of stuff, that's incredibly dangerous stuff. In retrospect, we can now see that it was dangerous. But now he's doing another one that I think is really dangerous. And when he's saying this thing about we're going to end this by Easter, what we know about humans is that hope is really important, but hope can also be really dangerous. And that is that I remember reading years ago in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, that he discussed that rumors would spread around. Here he was, I think he spent 4 years in Auschwitz. And, so he's got rumors would circulate every Christmas that the Allied forces were going to liberate them, during Christmas. And what was interesting is that the death rate would slow down. Now, I'm not talking about the death camp aspect. I'm talking about the work camp aspect. So people would be dying quite regularly in there, just dying. But all of a sudden, in the couple of weeks leading up to Christmas, they'd stop because they had hope, right? So hope was good. But then when the Allied forces didn't come, they would just die. Like all hope was gone. And so I think we need to be careful right now about overestimating our ability to handle this thing. And anybody who's sitting here making plans for traveling in May, or plans for reuniting with their family in May, I really have to watch this. I am on my own. I am an introvert, but I am not that introverted. I'm a social animal like any sapien. And so I am sitting here contemplating, I might be alone for 2 months. It is very important for me to be aware of that, because what I could do is sit here and think, oh, in 2 weeks, I'm going to get to see this person, or in 3 weeks, I'm going to see my daughter. Or I could do that. But then when that doesn't happen, that's like falling off an emotional cliff. So I think we have to balance a degree of optimism with a degree of reality, and we've got to take care of our emotional needs. So if you're like me, if anybody's like me and you're alone, then thank God this didn't happen 10 years ago. You know, when internet wasn't so solid, we didn't have voice over IP so well dialed in. I mean, now I'm having more loving, amazing, deep conversations with people now than I ever was before, because you know what? I have to.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for saying that, you know, because it is something that for anyone listening right now, who do you know living by themselves? Are you checking in with them? Because this is a very real thing. And anyone that's been in a dark space before, the most dangerous place you can be is inside of your own head without reprieve. You know, and not to make someone your responsibility by any stretch, but it's a lot. And there's a reason why there was a whole movie, you know, for Castaway created for such a concept of being locked away on an island, because of what the human mind can do, not only just because of the separation, but to entertain itself, to create problems so that it has something to do. Because to just be still, if someone has been traveling the world and doing all this stuff, if the mind isn't preoccupied with something constructive, whether it's a musical instrument, painting, connection, calls, writing a book, it will find something to do. Yeah, it will. And you know, a really important distinction about that is that the easiest thoughts to have, in other words, the thoughts that likely take the lowest amount of energy, physical energy, are survival thoughts. They're the easiest thoughts to have. So it's actually easier from an energy perspective to be negative, because negative means you're looking around for potential danger to try to keep yourself safe. And we're very good at that. And the funny thing is, the lower energy we get, the easier it is to have those thoughts. And so it's really important that we actively work. Like, this is not the time for watching shows that make you cry. This is not the time for watching shows that scare you. You know, The Walking Dead.
This is definitely not time for The Walking Dead. You know, it just isn't. We don't need that kind of adrenaline. Like, I confess, I actually quite enjoy The Walking Dead. And I did. I mean, I like to think of myself as a deeper, more spiritual person than that. But there's some part of watching, I'm a survivalist. I've been in some really scary situations, and I like, you know, what would I do in that situation? But I'll tell you what, I'm not watching it right now. I'm already in a survival situation. I don't need to adrenalize the hell out of myself with something scary.
Yeah, agreed. So what are some of the recommendations you're making for your clients, for the people that are participants in your Wild Fit community?
Well, I'll give you, you know, we've done a 3-part special on our Thrive Time show on the 14 essential needs, but I'll give you the rundown. The 14 essential needs are broken into 3 categories: physical, emotional, and spiritual. They're in that order because that's the order of urgency. Physical needs are more urgent than emotional needs, which are more urgent than spiritual needs. Inside the physical needs, we have, you know, in order of relative urgency. At the top, it's very clear, the urgency. Afterward, it's a little harder to measure, but at the top is air. And it may seem like a pointless thing to point out because most people are not forgetting to breathe, but we have to think about what and how we're breathing. So if people are trapped in their houses, I am unbelievably appreciative and grateful for the fortunate life that I find myself in. I live in a nice house. I'm not worried about paying the rent, the mortgage. I have food around me. I'm grateful. And I have outdoors, but I'm really aware that there are some people in apartments and they're not allowed to go outside. Open the window, get the door open, get some fresh air flowing. The air is cleaner now than it's been in 100 years. So get some fresh air in your house and circulate it, and breathe deeply. Again, let's go back to you walk around a corner and a lion comes up behind you, right? Well, you don't, by the way, this has happened to me. This is not a figurative thing. I've literally done this. I've walked around a corner, there's a lion there. And I got to tell you, they're bigger than you think. Take the biggest dog you've ever seen, and they're 5 times bigger than that. They're huge. And so you walk around the corner, and you don't do this. You don't do that. You see a lion, you go, and then you breathe really shallow because you don't want the lion to hear you. Shallow breathing is prey breathing. Not praying, pray, as in I'm feeling hunted. So when you breathe very shallowly, your body believes that you're under threat, and you start creating cortisol and adrenaline, and as we talked about before, which means you divorce yourself from empathy, intelligence, and logic. None of that's helpful. So what you breathe and how you breathe are really important. Number 2 is water. You've got to stay hydrated. Let me tell you what is not water.
Coca-Cola is not water. Pepsi, coffee, milk, those things are not water. Basically, you want to know what water is? Water is water. That's it right there. Water is water. So, you got to stay hydrated. Every function of the body, from psychology to physiology, involves water. You got to have it. Mm-hmm. And if people are always saying, what about my Kangen pH balance? Just get water. Like water without a lot of toxins in it, and not distilled water. You want water that's got natural minerals in it. If you can, fresh spring water, glacial runoff water, mineral water would be the best thing to do, because otherwise it's a long conversation. So air, water. Then the next thing we have to do is make sure that we're sleeping. Like I can tell, because I can see my social media stats. Like we can see, you're looking at my feed all night long. Stop it. Like you gotta get some sleep. You gotta get some sleep. Turn off all your devices 2 hours before bedtime. No devices. They mess up your melatonin production, which incidentally is not just about sleep. It's also about immune function. So you got to make sure you're sleeping properly. Chill the room a little, make sure it's dark, and get some sleep. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you look and you go, oh God, I woke up again. That happened. That used to happen to me all the time. You know what I do now? I wake up and I go, I'm awake, and I look at the clock and it's 3 a.m. And I used to go, oh my God, I'm frustrated by that. Now I go, oh, it's 3 a.m. baby. I got 3-4 more hours to go. And I meditate until I fall asleep. So you got to sleep. We got to make sure we have enough energy. Now, this one is a tricky one because most people have more than enough energy. The average person in America, for certain, and the rest of the Western world, is overfed energy and underfed non-energy nutrients. So most people don't have a problem with energy, but they have a problem with the kind of energy. So what we're talking about here is stop it with the cheap carbs. Ideally, your energy right now would be coming from really good quality natural fats. That's the ideal energy. Then we need to have movement. Got to have movement. I could talk about that for an hour. Short version, your muscles and bones require movement to maintain strength. If you do not move, they will get weak, and you will come out of this pandemic weaker. So you got to be moving. You need resistance and flexibility. You got to be moving. But more important than that, if that's not enough for you, lymph cleans your body. It washes your cells, and it doesn't have a pump. Your heart pumps blood because blood is urgent and important. Your lungs have a pump, the diaphragm, because air is urgent and important. Lymph is not urgent. It's only important, and therefore it was fine for it to rely on your normal natural movements as the pump, your muscular contractions and relaxations as the pump. And so the problem right now is, and you keep saying this, right? Our grandparents were called to fight in the trenches. We're being called to sit on the couch. I think we can handle it. Well, yeah, except sitting on the couch is incredibly dangerous. You need to be up and moving about to keep your lymph moving. You got to make sure you're getting sunlight. You got to make sure you're getting sunlight. And if you live in one of these places that's kind of, a little lacking in sunlight, I don't want to call anybody out, but Vancouver, Seattle, in the United Kingdom, if you're struggling a little for sunlight, then, here's what you need to know. If it's light outside, that's sunlight. I don't care if there's clouds. If it's light outside, that's sunlight. Go and get some. You need the vitamin D. You need the serotonin production. Get the sunlight. That's the physical needs. So again, air, water, sleep, energy, movement. Oh, I forgot one more. Non-energy nutrients. Non-energy nutrients. So you're eating food not for energy, but for the nutritional constituents that are basically the building blocks by which you build your body. You need vitamins. You need minerals. You got to have them. And some of those things are going to probably have to come from supplementation because, frankly, soil depletion, all those things are an issue. But now food variety is even an issue for some people. So you got to be getting your minimally. These are my minimum recommendations. You want a bigger recommendation? Go follow JJ Virgin. She'll give you an encyclopedia. But my minimum recommendation is you got to be taking vitamin C. People are going to tell you that it's got to be liposomal and so on. Yeah, that'd be great. Just get vitamin C. I think you should also be topping up on zinc. And I think magnesium is also a great thing tonight, right now, particularly at night. It'll help you to sleep. Non-energy nutrients. So again, the physical needs: air, water, sleep, energy, movement, non-energy nutrients, and sunlight. Then the emotional needs. I'll be quicker, but we're social animals. We require social connection. An absence of social connection is as dangerous scientifically. Isolation is as dangerous as half a pack of cigarettes a day. Mm-hmm. So right now, I'm basically smoking. I was
going to say, so you're saying then I could be smoking. Where's the gas station?
No. So we got to make sure that we maintain social, listen, social distancing doesn't have to mean social isolation. That's right. What Zoom and Skype and all these things are for. We also require a sense of social significance. When we feel significant to our tribe, our immune system stands up and goes, well, I better protect you then. You're important, so I'll protect you. And if you feel insignificant, then the immune's like, oh, well, we can let them go. Now, I'm kind of exaggerating that point a little bit, but how can you feel significant? Well, you know what? Think about the people around you that need help. You know, think about the people around you that need support. Lead the way emotionally for them. We also require a sense of faith and a sense of certainty. You know, that's pretty hard to come by right now, unless you simply tap into it and you just say to yourself, I don't know what the new normal is, but I'm going to get myself ready for it. I don't know what life's going to be like, you know, after this is all over, but I'm going to get myself ready for it. And then we also require drama, and we're getting quite a lot of it right now, except that it's repetitive drama and we need some variety. And so, you know what? This is a great time to learn something. It's a great time to read. It is a great time for Netflix. Just choose wisely. And those emotional needs, if you satisfy them really well, you'll find yourself having a better temper, having a better response to the loved ones you have in your house. And I think overall, you'll just generally be happier. And then the spiritual needs are for a sense of progress as a human being, which is really difficult without real conscious effort at the moment because we're trapped in our houses. But guess what? Never has there been a better time for this to happen. Not ever. You can learn a language, you can learn an instrument, you can learn to sing, you can learn how to code, you could learn how to build funnels for the internet, you could learn how to create digital products, you could learn foreign relations, you could learn chemistry, biology. You could learn anything you want right now. So your progress is in your hands. Guys, I bought a guitar.
Yay.
I bought a guitar, and I was so impressed myself because I picked up the guitar and I'm just strumming along with it. And all of a sudden I found somebody taught me how to play the opening sequence to Stairway to Heaven when I was 17 years old. And I found it on the guitar without a lesson. I'm in. Nice. I'm going to learn to play. And then there's contribution, which is also a big spiritual need. And of course, which helps with significance and connection, all that stuff as well. And you know, just look around. If you know a first responder, why don't you order a warm meal delivered to their house when they get home from work? You know, do something for them. I'll tell you what, here's one of my little predictions. Thank you for your service is going to move from the military to the doctors and the cleaning staff in the hospitals and the police and the firemen that are out there handling this at the front lines for us. So those are the essential needs of a human. And I think that if we work consciously to handle those needs, we will get through this and we will be better at the end of it, stronger and more ready.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That is what's possible. And moving forward, we're not going to have the same onslaught of fear if we're prepared. You know, now we have been shown a less than favorable mirror for humanity that we are not well. And whether it's this virus, and there will be another, this one will mutate. That's how viruses work. And this isn't the first coronavirus. So this is here to stay now. And the only thing we can really do to fortify or to prevent the proliferation, or at least it taking out so many people, is to uplift the entire being. So thank you for what you're doing, what you're creating for people, you know, the tens of thousands of stages and people that you impact because of everything that you've been through. And you make an amazing Jack Sparrow.
You know, JJ has a big dance party coming up this weekend. I apparently missed the last one, and she told me that I have to have an outfit for it. I'm like, I'm trapped in my house. The only outfit I've got is Captain Jack. She goes, well, there you go.
Perfect.
Might have to bring Captain Jack back.
Yeah, it's bring Jack back, bring Jack back, bring Jack back.
I think we need to give like listeners a little background. We were all at a really fantastic and amazing 3-day New Year's party at JJ Virgin's house, and one night there was a costume party, and I did Captain Jack. But what was funny is I went so deep into character that I just didn't come out. But what was really crazy about it was, and I don't know if you guys heard this story or not, but I was walking back because we were all sharing our Airbnb. I'm walking back to the Airbnb, which is 3 blocks away, and this car drives by, and it's at that moment that they shout at me. It's at that moment that I realized that I've stayed in character all the way home. I'm stumbling down Captain Jack style after the party. I was definitely ready.
Man, you rocked that, bro. You really rocked.
I was saying that to
awesome.
Keith Norris, or who is it? I was saying it to somebody the other day. I was like, the fact that he still walks home in character, that is the commitment level of Eric Edmeades. Is like, no, I'm still, until this hat comes off, I am Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, you rocked it, bro. I mean, it was awesome.
It was
Good job.
awesome.
It was
Well, I just had JJ on my show, and I committed to her that assuming flying is allowed, wherever New Year's party is this year, I'm coming. So,
We'll be there.
We shall be there.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for your time. Thank you for being on the show and sharing a wealth of knowledge and various perspectives, a few that haven't been spoken about on the show yet. And just the way you put it together, and you're an incredible storyteller, so it's always fun to
Love
hear.
the passion, man. Love the passion.
Where can people find you if they'd like to find out more about what you do, what you're doing, or how they can work with you or be involved?
you know, really, the very best way to find me is on Instagram. It's the one social media platform I manage myself. Like everything else is team, honestly. So, you know, I mean, if you join me on Instagram, I answer my own. Those are messages that are from me. I often answer in voice, and I really connect with people through Instagram. Also, by the way, a big favor everybody could do for me is I had a couple of whales visit us in the bay. I sent my drone out to go see the whales, and then I created a little video with a little message about the Earth's healing right now. And I'd love to get that video out to everybody that could ever possibly see it. So it's in my Instagram feed. If you go catch that and go and, you know, repost that, that would be really helpful. If anybody really wants to revisit their relationship with food, I highly recommend that they go to getwildfit.com and do the 14-day challenge that we've got there. It will really change your relationship with food so that you don't have to rely on your willpower to change what you're eating. We can help you change your psychology so that you don't want the things that you wish you didn't. So go to getwildfit.com and we can support you there.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you so much more than you can ever understand. It's been such an honor to meet with you, to know you, and just know that we are here for you, man. In your isolation, you know, as you're by yourself, you need to reach out, man. We're here, bro.
Hey, I really